Okay, let's dive right into an absolutely gripping corporate case study that we are unpacking today. Welcome to our latest explainer. Look, if you've spent any time in the corporate world, you know that the most intense drama doesn't happen in screaming matches. It happens quietly in the background systems. Today, we're dissecting a phenomenal breakdown of offboarding truth, system access, and what happens when an organization panics. We're looking at a story that revolves around what was supposed to be a completely routine HR procedure, but one that instantly spiraled into a massive internal crisis. Our main focus today is uncovering what happens when leadership tries to bury the truth under the guise of procedure, and more importantly, the absolute undeniable danger of labeling the retention of evidence as a quote-unquote security risk. We are going to explore exactly how a sharp investigative audit team followed the digital breadcrumbs to expose a carefully orchestrated executive cover-up. So grab your notes, get comfortable, because the way this unfolds is literally a masterclass in reading between the lines of corporate bureaucracy. Now, what's really interesting about this hook is how it immediately sets the stakes for everything we're about to talk about. Just think about the sheer speed of that reaction. An ordinary administrative process, an exit interview, which, let's be honest, is usually just a dry formality where you hand in your badge, confirm your mailing address, and sign some paperwork, concludes right at the 12-minute mark, and literally 60 seconds later, a complete system-wide archive lockdown is initiated. This wasn't a glitch. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't a glitch or some routine scheduled maintenance window. It was a deliberate action that instantly transformed a mundane process into a blazing red flag. When a major corporate system locks down that incredibly fast, it means someone, somewhere in that building, panicked. They heard something they didn't like, and they pulled the emergency brake. Moving right along to Section 1, the Minute 13 lockdown, when ordinary records become dangerous. This timeline right here brilliantly illustrates that the lockdown absolutely was not a coincidence. When you look at the sequence of events laid out like this on the screen, the illusion of a random security event just completely shatters, doesn't it? The exit interview runs its short course from minute 1 to minute 12, and the very second it concludes, the digital doors slam shut at minute 13. It was a highly reactive, incredibly defensive maneuver deployed instantly. It tells us that whoever had their finger on the button was literally watching the clock, waiting for the departing employee to finish speaking and leave the room before they completely sealed off the archives. It's essentially the digital equivalent of locking the filing cabinet and swallowing the key the second someone turns their back. I absolutely love this observation, and it's a huge takeaway for us today. As strategy lead Maya Carter perfectly states here, the truly dangerous documents never look dangerous at first glance. Think about it. Cover-ups in the real corporate world don't happen with giant neon signs pointing to a folder labeled Secret Executive Crimes. The system in this specific case study was tested not by some dramatic cinematic hacking event, but by an ordinary, incredibly boring interview transcript that nobody in leadership wanted to explain. It's the absolute banality of the record that makes it so incredibly potent. It's a seemingly administrative piece of paper that, when pulled like a loose thread, threatens to unravel the entire executive suite. Let's move to Section 2, Decoding the Corporate Spin, Soft Language versus Hard Truths. Okay, let's compare these two narratives side by side, because this is where the corporate theater really begins. On one hand, we see the highly polished, super soft language generated by security and PR. They are using all those classic buzzwords like alignment and culture reset, and they claim they were simply ensuring business continuity. The official excuse was that the departing employee mentioned restricted materials, which required immediate containment. Well, it all sounds very professional and responsible, right? Almost noble. But contrast that with the audit team's suspicions on the right side. They suspected that leadership was actually weaponizing the label of a security risk to intentionally hide a very specific evidence packet. They recognized immediately that containment was just a very polite, sterile word for erasure. This brings us to such a fascinating psychological element of office politics. Here we have a warning from Adrian Vale, a transformation officer. You'll notice that the pushback the investigating team received from leadership didn't come as a direct, aggressive threat. In a sophisticated corporate environment, toxic pressure doesn't look like a boss screaming in your face in the hallway. No, it arrives disguised as polite executive theater. It sounds like a senior mentor taking you out for coffee, giving you career advice, expressing deep, heartfelt concern for the stability of the company, and gently suggesting that good leaders know when to stop turning minor administrative inconsistencies into full-blown crises. It's a velvet hammer, and it's entirely designed to make the investigators feel like they are the ones being unreasonable and disruptive for simply doing their jobs and asking questions. But as we see here, independent board member Elise refuses to accept that soft pressure. Elise makes it incredibly clear that moving forward with all that healing and alignment, those fluffy buzzwords we saw earlier, is completely meaningless if the company is just burying the cold, hard truth underneath a fresh coat of paint. Closure without institutional memory isn't actually closure at all. It's just a cover-up masquerading as progress. If you don't address the root cause documented in the records, if you don't acknowledge what actually broke, you're just slapping a brand new cover page on the exact same toxic playbook, and Elise wasn't having any of it. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, Building the Proof Map, Following Systems, Not Speeches. Enter Sofia Lane, the operations coordinator, and her role here brilliantly illustrates the absolute superpower of having fresh eyes in an organization. Because Sofia is new, she hasn't yet learned which questions the old corporate culture considers inconvenient. She hasn't been socially conditioned to look away or to accept the "we've always done it this way" excuse. So what does she do? She simply reads the fine print that senior executives have trained themselves to skip over. She dives deep into the document metadata, the routing notes, the owner fields, and those tiny little footnotes at the bottom of the page. And most importantly, she spots the glaring missing approvals. So while the executives are busy giving eloquent speeches about robust security protocols, Sofia is quietly looking at the digital tags that show that exact protocol was completely, intentionally bypassed. To make sense of all of Sofia's findings, Maya Carter steps in and creates this incredible proof map. She maps the digital object directly to the owner, to the exact timestamp, and critically, to the beneficiary of the action. She knows that people might lie, and executive speeches might be designed to mislead, but records placed in strict chronological order will begin speaking long before anyone actually confesses to anything. Just look at this layout. We can see the exit transcript concludes at minute 12. At minute 13, archive access is locked by IT, which heavily benefits the legal team. And the ultimate outcome? The final evidence packet is completely blocked from reaching the Independent Trust Committee. And who does that directly benefit? An executive named Victor Hale. When you lay the data out like this, the sequence removes all the fog. The intent becomes undeniably clear. But we have to remember, digital records are really only half the battle. Nina Ross, an executive assistant, brings in the physical background work. Nina's insight is so invaluable here. People who do illicit things on their computers often treat their background administrative work as if it's completely invisible. They forget about the physical world. But Nina knows better. She knows that to execute a major cover-up, conference rooms still have to be booked. Drafts of talking points have to be physically printed out on the office printer. Visitors, like outside counsel, have to be logged at the front desk, and corporate cards leave receipt trails. By pulling those calendar exports and visitor logs, Nina fundamentally proves that this quote-unquote spontaneous security lockdown actually had a highly coordinated, premeditated, physical footprint in the real world. Those invisible admins, they actually see everything. And to hammer the final nail into the technical excuse, Jordan from IT Audit steps up to translate the system for the rest of the team. Jordan projects the raw logs, the access fields, the specific device records, and the entire owner history up on the screen. As our source material points out so well, the truth here isn't some cinematic, fast-typing hacker moment with green code raining down a black screen. It is remarkably, beautifully mundane. It is just a simple, unarguable sequence of exactly who logged in and changed a specific field at a specific time. Jordan cuts through all of the executives' corporate excuses about system anomalies or glitches by providing raw data sequences proving that their suspicion is just a sequence of logged actions waiting to be read. All right, moving into Section 4, Confronting the Cover-Up, Forcing Accountability. So the team takes this data into a formal executive review meeting. And of course, the meeting initially starts like all of these high-stakes meetings do. Lots of powerful people softening their verbs, talking a lot about optics, and trying to manage the emotional mood of the room rather than addressing the actual facts. But then Aisha Morgan cuts through the noise and asks this brilliant room-shrinking question. Who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Wow. It completely changes the oxygen in the room. It pulls the executives violently away from their feelings, away from their PR spin about healing the culture, and forces them directly back to the cold, hard facts on the table. It demands a specific name, not just a vague corporate sentiment. And that exact moment is when Maya places the proof directly beside the official explanation. We have the executive theater on the left, worrying about optics, softening verbs, renaming their choices to sound better, matched directly against the concrete evidence of Sofia's discovery on the right.
When you look at them side by side like this, the official narrative completely and utterly shatters. You just can't defend it anymore. The data explicitly reveals that the lockdown was not a benevolent security containment measure to protect the company. It was a targeted surgical strike executed for one specific reason: to hide an outgoing employee's final evidence packet from the Independent Trust Committee. The only security risk they were actually managing was the risk to the executives' own reputations.
When the executives predictably try to push back one last time, trying to find any wiggle room, Maya delivers what is honestly the ultimate mic drop of this whole case study. She looks right at them and says, "I am not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust the record you created." I want you to really think about the power of that statement. The executives intentionally altered the system to hide the truth, but in doing so, they left undeniable digital footprints. Maya is showing them that when the record was changed, the change itself became the ultimate evidence of their guilt. They are completely boxed in, trapped by their very own audit logs. Section 5. Fixing the system. Repair that outlives the meeting. So the executives are now caught red-handed. And predictably, they try to offer a private apology. They want to quietly fix the IT permissions, shake hands behind closed doors, and sweep the whole conflict under the rug to save face. But the audit team absolutely refuses. Maya Carter states, "Do not quietly fix what can publicly teach." They recognize a really profound truth about corporate culture here. Private fixes might make executives feel comfortable in the short term, but they leave future employees completely exposed to the exact same abuses of power down the line. A secret repair is no repair at all. It's just hitting the snooze button on a toxic culture. To ensure this exact scenario never happens again, HR manager Linda Park steps in and implements these 3 incredibly robust structural steps. Let's break these down. First, they completely separate security containment protocols from evidence access. This is huge because it means IT security can never again be used as a convenient backdoor excuse to hide HR evidence. Second, they create mandated departure rights packets for protected employees, ensuring that the truth during an offboarding process can't be trapped in a single, easily deleted silo. And third, they write these visible controls directly into the daily workflow. By doing this, they ensure that any future conflict or attempt at a cover-up leaves a permanent, unavoidable footprint. They successfully take a procedure that was being used as a shield by powerful people, and they turn it into a permanent mechanism of protection for vulnerable people. That is real structural change. And this brilliantly illustrates the overarching theme of this entire explainer. We really need to rethink what safety means at work. A repaired workplace is not some magical utopia without conflict. Let's be real, toxic behavior, disagreements, and bad actors will always exist in some form or another. But a truly safe and genuinely repaired workplace is one where that conflict is forced to leave a permanent, unalterable record. True safety doesn't come from hoping you just happen to have brave, heroic employees willing to risk their careers to rescue the truth every single time. True safety comes from building automated, unflinching systems that protect the truth by default. This quote right here perfectly encapsulates the quiet, undeniable power of data. The record did not raise its voice. It simply waited for someone patient enough to read it. When you're navigating complex office politics or feeling gaslit by corporate spin, remember that the proof is almost always there. It's sitting quietly in the background, in the metadata, in the visitor logs, in the timestamps. It doesn't yell. It just requires someone like Sofia or Maya, someone who is patient enough to look past the shiny official corporate presentation and actually read the boring, mundane details. But of course, the work of maintaining corporate integrity is never truly finished, is it? While this specific Minute 13 lockdown cover-up was successfully foiled and amazing structural fixes were implemented, old habits die hard. The source material actually hints at the next challenge this team is going to face: anonymous praise that was actually a deeply hidden warning. Toxic culture is incredibly adaptable. It's like a virus. When one loophole is firmly closed, it just mutates and tries to return through quiet workflow changes or newly polished soft explanations. Vigilance has to be a continuous, everyday practice. Which brings us to the end of our analysis today. I want to leave you with this provocative thought to consider about your own daily work life. If a truly safe workplace means that truth no longer needs permission from an executive to appear on the record, what ordinary, seemingly boring administrative record in your own office is quietly hiding the next big truth right now? I highly encourage you to take a look at those routine logs and unread policies with fresh eyes tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the systems around you until we dive into our next explainer.